Welcome to the season finale of Teacher Talk, Episode 5, Digital Portfolio Presentation. So, this is my website that I created for the CUR545 course at the University of Phoenix. I chose to use Google Sites because I'm familiar with it. I have created sites before. This is what I typically use in my classroom when I'm creating a classroom website for my students and parents and school to access, to just be familiar with what we're doing in the classroom. And I regularly update it, so I'm familiar with this concept. What I did is I followed suit. I looked at the examples provided to us and some of the ones that my classmates created. And so on the home page here, I have the content with my name, the school, course, and facilitator, and a table of contents link that takes us to the table of contents tab. Here, I just use the different images that are at the top of each page, and each of these is a link to that page, just because I wanted to include a table of contents ahead of time. If we look at week one, this is the 21st century teaching and learning, in which we had to create our word cloud. This was used to, I used rather, different important text that I found throughout my research. I took out keywords and put it in here. Here we have our infographic. I used Canva to create this, and Canva is really a great resource for anyone to use. It is free. There is a paid option, but I use the free option. And a lot of what I've created on here, which we'll get to momentarily, was created using Canva. During week two, we had to analyze 3 different scenarios and essentially come up with presentations for each of these. And so I chose to create videos. I used the Microsoft Media option, Movie Maker rather, and I used that. I put all of my recordings, images, audio recordings, etc., in there, saved them, and uploaded them to YouTube. So each one, because of the way the instructions were set up, I understood it that I needed to have 3 different videos. Some people did just one. And so here we have each scenario. And I chose to create it in the idea that it was a podcast, an audio and visual podcast on YouTube. And so we have the elementary scenario, the middle school scenario, and the high school scenario, all of which are on YouTube and available for viewing. For the Lunch and Learn presentation, the instructions essentially asked us to use something with which we were not entirely familiar. That's the way I understood the instructions. And so creating this, I chose to use a collection of resources. The primary one was through PowerPoint presentation and Google Slides. But as part of that, I created a Powtoon. And Powtoon is great. You're able to do a lot with it. You can put images that are moving. You can use different transitions. And it's really great to make a vibrant, engaging, exciting visual presentation. But the problem is with the free version, you're limited to 5 minutes. And I didn't realize, or excuse me, I think 3 minutes. And I didn't realize that when I first started recording. And so I had to transition and change. So I included the PowerPoint presentation here, which essentially opens up
Thank you for joining me for
the
today's
entire
special
presentation
Lunch
that I
and
was doing
Learn,
for this
integrating
Lunch and Learn.
technology into your classroom. We
And if
benefit
you
all
see
teachers.
here,
As
we
we
have
taught
different
yesterday,
options. We have this moving
we rob our
background. It's
children
really
of
great.
tomorrow.
And so here, this is again the presentation that I created for the Lunch and Learn. And here was the brochure. Again, I used Canva to create it, and I wanted to make it vibrant and exciting. And essentially, this is what would be handed out ahead of the Lunch and Learn. The idea is that this would be what grabbed the attention of the potential participants, and a lunch and learn is conducted in a brief amount of time during someone's lunch break. That's the idea behind it. So we wanted to make something that is exciting for the participants to get them interested in it, let them know briefly what is going to be covered, and essentially just get them to want to attend. And this was on the emerging trends in integrating technology. For this, I chose to focus on the next generation digital learning environments, and I went against them. And so what we did is we looked at the benefits of the next generation digital learning environment and the challenges. And again, this was created using Canva, this infographic. For the video, I used, again, a collection of different resources, including Powtoon, Canva, and I put it all into the Windows Movie Maker and uploaded it on YouTube. So I'm using different resources and tools to create this to make a cohesive product. Look at week 5. There were 2 parts to this. We had to first identify resources and basically create an annotated bibliography. And then for part 2, we had to create an editorial. And so if we look at part 1, I put the 2 buttons on this first page because they are sub-pages. So if we click on page 1, we're looking at the resources on copyright, fair use, Creative Commons, FERPA, and other technology privacy concerns, and plagiarism and academic dishonesty. Here's a table of contents at the top of the page. That way, if you wanted to just click on one and look at plagiarism, for example, you click on that and it takes you right to that section of the page. And this is easily attainable. If we simply go to that page and look at it, you're able to see that what this is headings. So if I look here, I click on the text, you can see that this is formatted to be a heading. And so any heading that you create, it creates your table of contents up here. And these are all subheadings underneath this main one, which is resources. It's the title. If we look at the editorial for this, again, I chose to do something a little bit different. I made a podcast for this one, and I used Anchor to do that. Anchor is supported by Spotify, and so it takes a moment to load on my screen. But if you see here, this is the continuation of that theme of the podcast idea that I did called Teacher Talk. Here, I was focusing on addressing the digital divide of technology availability and education in low-income areas. It was created on Anchor, but through Anchor, I was able to post it to different locations, including Spotify. I wanted to share both of those links here. Even though it wasn't asked of us, I did believe that it was important because I know that sometimes it might be difficult for people to understand me. And sometimes the audio wants to cut in and out. So I included a transcript of what I said. I typed it all out ahead of time and read from that as I was recording the podcast. So all of the transcript is here along with the references. And this brings us to our week 6. And for week 6, we have 3 different items we had to include. We had our best practices and trends presentation. We had to create an email, and then here the digital portfolio that I'm currently recording. So for the best practices and trends presentation, I created this using Canva again, but I again wanted to challenge myself a little bit. Basically, the instruction said we couldn't use PowerPoint, but to use something of our choice. And so I used Canva to create the presentation. And with that, here is a look at Canva. If it will load, this is your home page. When you first log in, you're able to see all of your designs that you've created. And clearly, if you look here, I've created a lot of different things on Canva. One thing that I noticed when using Canva was that while you are not limited to a specific time for recording, you are not able to edit the recording. So you can pause your recording in the middle of it and resume it. But if you make a mistake, you either have to keep it in there or you are going to have to re-record it. So I did have to re-record at one point and go from there. But because I created in Canva, it was not a resource that we could easily just upload to our course assignment. It's not supported necessarily, so I had to include it on here as a link. And also, I could download it and upload it to YouTube, but it was such a large file, it was just taking too long to do that, and I was having to include a lot of different stuff or take out some things. So here we have a link to it. I included 3 different options for the links just because I wanted to make sure that it was accessible in case it didn't load for one of these. And again, we have our transcript. This was actually required for this assignment. I typed out everything that I was going to say, including all of the research that I did. and read directly from this while I was recording. And again, we have our educational technology toolkit. This was the quote unquote email we were supposed to include. And so I just created a false email here that I was sending it to principal@myschool.edu. And I just analyzed the text sample that was available. I included a link to what I was looking at, and it went from there. So, how could I expand on each of these? I think that what we could look at for each of these diverse classroom learners and technology. This is actually something I would love to continue, just analyzing the different trends, the different scenarios we encounter as teachers. Being able to expand on this, I think, could have we could have more resources looked at. We could include more examples. Because I was recording using my screen sharing, I was limited. So I think if we were actually able to provide opportunities for sampling of these resources, that would be a great way to expand on this. Emerging trends and integrating technology. With this presentation, I think that the presentation is great, but I would like to again include some of those resources. And if we were looking at an argument against the next generation digital learning environments, I would like to include some of those links that were accessible and allow the viewers of the presentation to engage with it and make their own conclusion. While my argument was against it, I think that it's imperative for viewers and participants to form their own ideas and come to their own conclusions. So being able to engage with it would be a great way. I hope that this was informative for you and that you were able to take something from this. And really, with technology, it's a matter of trying and doing. So just know that anything you create or you do on here, you can't break it. Everything can be fixed.